everyone, 'tis I, the Witch of Paint. A very happy Easter to you all. If you're looking for something simple to paint for a day like this, you have come to the right place. We are going to be painting some very simple flowers and Easter eggs today. For this, I will be using this 100% cotton paper sketchbook from Fontaine. It's cold pressed and 300 grams per meter squared, as well as acid free. Yay! All things that promise an amazing watercolor experience. I don't have any details on the price, however, since this was a gift from a very considerate friend. First impression of the paper? It's kind of soft to the touch, like all good cotton paper is supposed to be, I'm going to guess, because my other cotton sketchbook is also quite soft. I'm very impressed that my friend managed to find this in his first trip to an art store. It took me years to even come across a small cotton paper sketchbook, and here I am now with a cotton paper sketchbook that is bigger than the one I decided to buy for myself. Oh, the size, by the way, is 12 by 18 centimeter, so bigger than the cotton sketchbook that I bought from Rhodia. This one from Fontaine also comes with a handy guide in the back that tells you about all the other kinds and sizes of paper that they offer, which helps me if I want to get myself more of this somewhere. Though, unlike my friend, I would probably have to order mine online instead of walking into an art supply shop. Sad for me, but hey, I have a lovely sketchbook to test out now. I used my Winsor Newton flower watercolour palette for this painting. I just figured that was the most reasonable kind of palette to use for an Easter-themed painting because of, spring and everything. But you can use whatever colours you like the most, just the most flowery or Easter eggy kind of colour palette. I wet the whole page and then just dropped in the different colours from my palette across the top. At the bottom I kept it in sap green in order to have a base for some grass. I didn't want this to be all flowers, I wanted to have some, stems to the flowers as well. So that's why I keep everything down at the bottom like a strip of green and then lots and lots of different coloured dots on the top. That I just let it all spread out and do its own thing, and then once it's dry, it's all up to basically what you do with this. You can get some more paint and paint out the flower shapes, which is what I did, or maybe, I don't know, get pens or coloured pencils or whatever else you have at hand, and use those to draw your flowers. There's no limit to what you can do with this kind of exercise. I just decided to go with more watercolour paint at the start and make some flower-shaped blobs. But first, what I'll do is paint in lots of long grass. I do this using sap green, and I literally just start from the bottom of the page and I pull up, lifting the brush as I do so that way the grass is a little more pointed towards the top than it is on the bottom. Then I move on to making a bunch of somewhat flower-shaped blobs, as I've said before. That's kind of what I'm going with the blobs. I'm also not necessarily sticking to all the colours that I put down in layer 1, and I'm not turning every little colour bit there from the first layer into a flower, because I decided that the rest of the colours that were just kind of blurry, those would just be a background, kind of like blurry flowers in the background, It's also completely okay if the blobs start bleeding into one another and mix together during the stage. We're not trying to make everything perfect here. All we are doing is making flowers, and flowers aren't perfect either, so get that perfectionist stuff out of your head. I know, it's a bit difficult. It's difficult for me too sometimes, but you've got this. Just messy flowers. With a mix of sap green and ultramarine, I also add some darker grass blades to the painting in order to get some depth into the foreground. And the next step for me was loosely adding outlines in darker colours to the flowers. I was being a little bit messy with this, especially in the top left corner, which I do fix in the end because I didn't like the way that it was looking. But other than that, I just used this to just kind of make it look like, they are flowers and not just blobs, so it's just they have some sort of outline, and it's all kind of somewhat defined. I do this for all the flowers before moving on to giving them all separate stems using a darker mix of sap green and ultramarine, and this time I'm being a lot more deliberate than I was with the grass. I also add in leaves by pulling the brush away from the stem at an angle, and I thicken it out a little bit to give it, the general leaf shape. I do try to give all of the flowers different kind of leaf shapes, because if you've ever looked closely at a flower field, then you know that leaves have different shapes for pretty much every plant. Sure, there may be similarities between them, but overall every plant has very unique leaves. So let's give our plants their own unique leaves too. Even though I technically don't go that unique with the leaves. Some of them are a little bit thicker once I remember, oh wait, plants don't have the same leaves and all of these are different flowers, so they should technically be having different shaped leaves. But, we're just winging it. Just wing the shape of the leaf. Do what makes you happy. I forgot to film a little bit of the next few steps, but I figured that the painting was a little bit too messy for my taste after that had dried, and I thought that since Easter was coming up, I should also add in some Easter eggs. So I brought out my gouache paints and cleaned up the flowers and painted different coloured egg-shaped blobs at the bottom of the page. So basically there's going to be a little bit of a skip there over that step because I forgot that I was filming. I'm sorry. But basically, if you have gouache paints or other opaque mediums, I guess you could also do this with Posca pens. Just egg-shaped blobs. It's really simple, just egg-shaped blobs. And after I did that, I turned the camera back on and you'll see me clean up some more flowers around the top, just because I thought that they were not looking, particularly clean. I didn't like how messy some of them looked, and the colours were a little bit too dark for my taste, so I used my gouache paints to just kind of lighten up some of the colours, change them up, and then later on I'll give them more shadows. You don't have to do this, of course, but right about that point was when my perfectionist side started kicking in. I know I said we are trying to not be perfect with this one, but sometimes I just can't help myself. Onto the egg-shaped blobs, I will be painting different patterns. It doesn't matter what these patterns are, whether they're waves or dots or zigzags or lines. I did paint a bunny on one of them just because I felt like I needed at least one Easter bunny reference in this painting, since that's the creature humans have decided to deliver eggs to us on Easter Sunday, which is today. Even though bunnies, of course, don't lay eggs. Although I'm not sure who's telling the story that the Easter bunny is the creature that lays the eggs. As a kid, I always, grew up with the story that the Easter bunny collects the eggs from the chickens, paints them, and then delivers them to the kids. And I'm pretty sure most people aren't, telling the story the way that the Easter bunny is laying the eggs. I don't think that's how it works, because it's a mammal, and mammals, we don't lay eggs. Anyways, it's still a little bit of a weird combination of bunny and egg, but I think it makes the most sense if you just leave the whole bunny lays the eggs out. If you just leave that out, instead the bunny's going to be stealing eggs from the chicken, just like we humans do that. Both, of course, the bunny and, well, not the bunny, the hare and the eggs do represent fertility and new life in this. And the eggs in particular became popular at around Easter time because during Lent they were, forbidden to eat because fasting and stuff. So at Easter people would start having eggs simply because of that, because, forbidden food, and then, yay, we can have it again. And of course, as humans being humans, we want to have some colourful things in there. So we of course started dyeing our eggs different colours. I think you can do it with flowers, maybe. But nowadays, I think a lot of us just paint the egg. Although usually I think that's an empty egg. Like you've hollowed it out so that, you don't get paint in your egg, if you know what I mean. But still, egg painting is very fun. I haven't done it in a while though. Simply because, well, while we do have eggs in the house, we're using it for other things that aren't egg painting, sadly. Back to the Easter bunny laying eggs though, if you, like me, have been, recently, I don't know, looking into things like Ostara or something, there are people out there who say that the Easter bunny has something to do with the goddess Eostre, who is celebrated at Ostara, or the spring equinox. As far as Wikipedia is concerned, though, there is no connection between Eostre and the Easter bunny. The legend goes that Eostre found a frozen bird on a tree branch, and in order to free it, she turned it into a hare. And that hare still lays eggs because it's technically a bird. I might have mentioned it before, that story, in past streams or videos. I'm honestly not sure how much I've talked about that story, thinking it was an actual, myth. I mean, I guess it is a myth, but it's not like an old myth. It's not canon for Eostre, so to speak. It popped up somewhere in 1883, and if you want to know more about that, I do have the Wikipedia link down in the description below. But it's not a story from pre-Christian times. Sad, I know, but that's just how it is. I mean, regardless, we have a funky little story about a goddess turning a bird into a hare in order to save it. It seems very illogical. Why would the hare not freeze, but the bird would? While my egg blobs are drying, I decided to add some details to the flowers, like, shadows and yellow dots for the middle of the flowers. The yellow egg made me struggle a little bit. I quickly got the feeling that the layer of yellow paint wasn't enough to cover up the green behind it, but I'd already put orange polka dots all over that egg. So that was a little bit of a difficult thing for me to deal with, because those dots were still wet, so when I tried to paint around them, and I wasn't exactly being, clean with that either, it just started getting messy, and then I quickly gave up on just painting around it and try to just go back to the flowers, think about it a little bit, and in the end I got my big wet brush and I went over the entire egg to blend out the polka dots to create a solid coloured egg again. And once I have that, I take red and yellow and blend those in while it's all still wet. I used the red for the bottom of the egg and yellow for the top. That way I created a sort of chunky gradient that reminds me a little bit of fire, so it's a fire egg. But once I'm satisfied with my fire egg, I decided it was time to add detail to the bunny on the purple egg. For this I used a dark purple, and at first it was just a very thick opaque mix, but then I realized the shadows were too blocky and too blobby, and I wanted something that was a little bit softer. So once again, I got a little water on my brush in order to reactivate the light base of the bunny so I could blend it with the dark purple of my shadows. Which got me a fairly nice looking, shadow bunny, at least for the head. I absolutely hated the way that the legs of the bunny were looking, and I handled that with absolute artistic maturity. I hid them behind turquoise grass. That was the only way I could think of dealing with my issues there. And to make it look intentional, I decided to also drop little dots of orange to represent little flowers, much like the flowers that are behind the eggs. Besides, having an Easter bunny on a plain background doesn't really make a lot of sense, even though technically speaking it also doesn't make sense that the sky behind them is purple, but that's besides the point, okay? Overall though, I think that the egg with the bunny is my favourite in this painting. And while I'm finishing off this whole flower painting, let's talk about my overall opinion regarding this paper. I mean, obviously it was great. Pretty much every 100% cotton paper that I have tried was absolutely great, even though I've only tried one 100% cotton paper, but that's not important right now. This is the second one, and so I feel like I have some, experience with cotton paper. It does have a great feel to it, and I really liked working with it. It absorbs the paint very nicely and makes it look pretty vibrant. So far, I haven't dared to paint on the back of this paper. I'm not sure how it'll react, and it probably will end up looking similar, to the front, but with a slightly different texture because it's cold press, so one side has one texture and the other one doesn't. It has a different texture. It's like the same but in reverse, kind of. I'll have to try and paint on the back in order to see how it works. Overall, my experience with this paper from Fontaine was pretty great, which was to be expected. I went into this knowing I would like it, though it is of course a rather pricey sketchbook, and I'm very lucky to have such a considerate friend who gifted me this one. I shall cherish it greatly. Also, this is obviously not sponsored, but I'll leave a link to where you can get the sketchbook yourself if you so decide to purchase it. I won't be getting any money from this, but I do recommend the sketchbook to you guys because it's pretty good for watercolours and gouache. These are the two things that I've tried. It also says that it's good for inks and some other things, but I haven't tried that quite yet. The small size I have here isn't that expensive. as, say, a bigger one, which obviously makes sense. Anyways, let's stop rambling about that sketchbook and talk about the final result of my Easter painting. I like this. I'm really happy with it. Sure, it was simple and a little bit of a chaos to create, but overall it's very cute and pretty. The colourful flowers and the eggs, they really make me happy and really put me in the right mood for Easter. I do hope they make you happy too. My favourite part of this is, as I've said, the egg with the bunny on it. It's just too cute. Kind of reminds me of paintings within paintings. Technically speaking, the eggs are paintings inside the paintings because they are painted eggs. That sounds very fun. Should I get back to trying to paint things inside of paintings, like put paintings inside paintings or something? I think I should do that at some point. That sounds like a lot of fun. Anyways, yes, I do like this painting. It's very, very colourful and pretty, and I'm happy with it. So if you liked this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to my channel, comment your favourite Easter tradition down below, and check out my social media links in the description. For the time being, I am the Witch of Paint, and I shall see you all next Sunday. Bye! Look who's made it to the end of the video! Well done for hopping back here. As always, there are artworks for you to enjoy, so have fun with those! Hello everyone, 'tis I, the Witch of Paint. A very happy Easter to you all. If you're looking for something simple to paint for... I bet people heard that, didn't they? Me bumping my finger against my sharpener. It's not an eraser, it's a sharpener. I guess it erases pencil. Back, focus, right. I just figured that for all the flowers, I do attempt to give each of them. Let's go with each of them. Let's not repeat flowers too many times, even though I love flowers. At Easter, people would have eggs. Sometimes they would be coloured eggs. Well, I feel like a lot of eggs during Easter. It's like... I have a script right in front of me and I'm not reading off of it for some reason. Maybe I should start doing that now.